Recording audio. All right, I've hit the recording button. I've already welcomed the live students. And for those that are watching this by a recording, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. This is, and I'll say to everyone who's listening, this is our first formal session. This is session number 1. Creation, the beginning of life as we know it, our first formal session. Last week was more of an introduction session. We got to know Zoom a little and also just gave an overview, and we had a little discussion about the story. So both to our live students and also our recording students, thank you for joining us. As an overview of what we're going to be doing today, let me just mention 2 or 3 things that I hope we'll get to do. The first is that I hope that I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to our online group website for those that are not aware of it. By being here, by registering, and then I took the registrations and put you into a group, you should have received an email on that. You are part of an online group, and you have access to certain resources. So I'm going to take a few minutes to demonstrate that. We ran out of time last session. I'll go ahead and spend a few minutes demonstrating that today and answer any questions that you have. The second thing that I'd like to do is to help us to understand that God's unchanging plan starts from the beginning with creation. And that's very important, that God's unchanging plan starts from the beginning with creation. As you did your personal time this week, I hope that came out. I hope you came to a realization that God is intentional, that this all-powerful creator of the universe, all-knowing, all-loving, and he also is all-judging, creator of the universe, he's very intentional. And he has a very intentional plan. And the plan didn't come along just at Jesus. You know, God didn't all of a sudden say, I'll send my son. I'll come down in the flesh and I'll save mankind. I'll save humans. He didn't just all of a sudden come up with it. This was a plan that he had even before time began. And so as we studied that this past week, I hope that really came out. And then lastly, near the end, we're going to take a look at movement number 1. In your reading, you notice that there were 5 movements in the story. The first movement is creation. And we studied that this past week. And we're going to go over that movement. We'll probably say it 2 or 3 times. What we're going to do is we're going to start to get this in us. We're going to say it a few times over this past week. I pray that you followed the directions, followed the instructions, and actually said that paragraph, movement number 1, several times. That's the beginning of starting to memorize it. Yes, I said the M word, memorization. I know a lot of people, the first thing you want to say is, hey, I've never been good at memorizing. I'm too old to memorize. I've gotten older. It's a lot harder. All that may be a little bit true. However, I think you'd be surprised with what you can do if you try. And the first step is just repetition. It's just reading it over and over. Hopefully you did that this past week. We'll have an opportunity to do a few things, a few times saying it today. So that's what I hope that I pray that we'll go ahead and do today. Bear with me while I click a few things here, and I'm going to share my screen and demonstrate how you can get a hold of some resources in our online group. Now, let me say this. Some of us do well with technology. You know, we might have 2 or 3 devices. We use them for work. We use them for play. We're used to navigating around. Some of us may be kind of average. We do a few things. We don't do maybe a whole lot. Maybe we struggle with a few things. Some of us may be on the lower end of the scale. Don't do too much technology. Maybe Zoom is even a stretch for you at this point. But wherever you are, I want to encourage you to go ahead and play within our online group website, what I show you. Go in there and see if you can access it. Go in there and see what's there and play around with it, because it's some good resources, and I think it will really bless you. So here I go, sharing my screen. There we go. Now, what you should see on your screen is my email. This is my email. The easiest way to get into our online group is through the email that welcomed you to the group. You should have received an email. I want to say, I'm looking for the date on this, around maybe the 23rd, maybe a day or two after that. I can't remember when I put myself in the group. But there's an email out there that says, "Hi," in your first name. "You have been added to the Story Bible Study group." And it has a big blue button, View Group. And big surprise, if you click on View Group, you'll actually get into start signing in to the online group page. So I'm going to go ahead and follow those my own directions here. I hit View Group. Now, if you're not logged in, the first thing that you're going to see is, to get started, enter your email address. We'll send you a code that you can use to log in. If you would rather use your mobile number, your cell phone number, there's a little hyperlink sentence down here that says use mobile number instead. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that because I like to use my mobile text instead of my email. I don't want to have to go into my email and try and pull it up. So I'll use my text instead. I'll put in my phone number, my mobile phone number, and then you just follow the directions. It sent a 6-digit code to my cell phone number, and there it is. And I'll put it in and hit enter or next. If for some reason you need to edit your phone number, you've changed numbers or something strange has happened, you can edit your phone number. You can resend the code also. There is an expiration time for this code. Some people tell me it's pretty quick. I've never had one expire on me. I just put it in right away. But it may be just a minute or two. I've had some people complain that, hey, it sent it to me, but I couldn't find my phone, or or something like that, and it expired, and I had to try it 2 or 3 times. Just make sure that you have your phone near you, or can get access to your email pretty quickly. All right, I click next or enter. And it says, "Hello, Paul." It recognized me. Let's get you logged in. I click log in as Paul. If for some reason that's not you, click that and follow the instructions. I log in as Paul. And this is what they call the public facing page. This is what people would see almost whether they're logged in or not. But I'm logged in, so you can see that my face up here comes from my profile. So that means I'm logged in. So let me take you through this screen just really quick. You have our logo up here. If you click the logo, it'll go to a public facing page that everybody can see. Just has some information about Mount Calvary Baptist Church. I'll go back to the group site. Up here in the upper right, you have a menu. You have home, calendar, groups, and registrations. Groups is highlighted, so that's where you are right now. You can go over to home, you can go over to calendar and registrations. I'm not going to cover that because of time, but this is a website that you can go to register for events, for Bible studies and things like that. You can see a calendar, which is something new that I've started. And so you can play around with that later. If you click on your picture or the down arrow, you can see a menu item for profile or to log out. You can change your profile at will. So this is the group website, the Story Study Bible Study Group. It gives you a description. It tells about upcoming events, tells about the schedule, who the leader is, and the location, which is online. The neat thing about this also is from this page, you can attend online. You can click where it says attend online and go right into the Zoom. You don't have to put in any ID number or passcode. As we talked about last week, Linda Russell was our expert, telling us that if you go to that reminder email that you get 2 days before Bible study, you should receive it sometime on Mondays. It has a hyperlink in there and it says attend online. So you get your reminder, then a couple of days later, you bring up that email, you click on attend online, and you're in Zoom. It's that simple. Now, to get to the group resources, you want to click on view group. Click on view group. And it comes up and it starts out with the first thing. These are the events. These are the events that I've entered in so far. Right now, we're at session 1. Then you see session 2, 3, and that's it. I've only entered the first 3. Last week, we had session 0. So on the left-hand side, you see events, resources, and members. Of course, this is the events page. If you use an online calendar, for example, I use Google, or if you use Apple Calendar, I'm not sure what they call it, you can subscribe to the group calendar so that any changes that are made to the group calendar is synchronized with your calendar, and you have all the information there. Apple Calendar, Outlook Calendar, Google Calendar, Outlook.com, Yahoo, and for those that know what an iCal link is, you can copy that. So these are all the events. Let me go to resources. The second menu says resources. These are all the documents and links that I put on this web page, on this website, to give you access to. I put my session notes in there. For example, last week's notes, session 0, getting started notes is on there. The syllabus is on there. There's a Bible reading article that I put on there. The video recordings, if you click on video recordings, you go to the playlist on YouTube and you can choose which video recording that you want to go to, the Bible study video recordings. Also, I have the story registration link. I need to take that off probably. And then the Zoom information just for general reference. The next section is members. This is where you can get the contact information of all the members that are part of the group. Let's say that you're looking for a reading buddy. It says, oh yeah, I really would like Anita Hill to be my reading buddy. She's an okay gal. You know, she's all right. And I'd love for her to be a reading buddy that we could talk during the week in between Bible studies about and encourage each other and things like that. But I don't have a telephone number and I don't have a directory. And I don't know her email address or anything like that. You can come to our website, our online group website, and there's Anita right there. Her phone number, email, nice picture there. So everybody is there. The good thing about this also is that if you go onto your website, you can actually edit what's visible for you. If you notice under me, it says edit visible information. If I click on that, and I'll go ahead and click on it, I can tell the profile, I can tell the computer, what do I want visible? Do I want everything visible or just want my profile photo or my email address or my phone number or nothing? Whatever you want to do, you can show what's visible. That way you have some privacy if you want to have some privacy, or you can put your phone number and email address and everything out there so that people can get a hold of you. When you make the changes, just click on Save Changes. So that is really about it. Those are the 3 areas. Again, events, resources, and members. If you want to log out, you can. You don't have to log out. It'll keep you logged in so that you don't have to keep logging in and out. I do have a couple of minutes. Let me just show you. I've already showed you home. I'll just show you very quickly these other menu items in the upper right. I've showed you home, just some information about Mount Calvary Baptist Church. Calendar. And this is something that starting to get into, starting to put all of our Bible studies on a calendar so that you can have a digital master calendar of all the Bible studies and events. There we are, session 1, creation of the Bible study. We have a Mount Calvary Baptist Church website rejuvenation group meeting on Thursday, and it's online. That is not a public group. You probably won't see it on your calendar, but I'm a member of that group. So that's the website. That's the group that's refreshing our website. We have Sunday worship service. We have a discipleship Sunday Bible study. We have the Bible expositor and illuminator Sunday Bible study, and so forth. So I'm starting to populate that so you'll have a master calendar. And then groups. These are our groups. We have Sunday Bible study groups, and we have Wednesday Bible study groups. If you see about, let's say you don't have a Sunday Bible study group. You're a member of Wednesday night Bible study, but hey, I'd like to go to a Sunday Bible study group. You go into the Sunday Bible study groups, and we have what I call the BEI, the Bible Expositor and Illuminator. And it's really a combination of men's, women's, and the mixed adults, a Sunday Bible school. The Sunday school. Those three groups use the same curriculum. And then they have rotating Bible teachers there. Exploring the Bible, the Discipleship Sunday Bible Study group taught by Reverend Blakemore is on here. And then the Young Adults Sunday Bible Study group. I teach the young adults. So if you ever want to join a group, let's say you want to get into the BEI, you just click on it. And it has a front page. You can upcoming events, has the Zoom information. I probably need to take that off, the Zoom information, until you actually join the group. But anyway, if you want to join the group, you click on Ask to Join, and then follow the instructions. So it's that simple. So here are our groups again. Here's our Story Bible Study group. All right, any questions? I know I went through that pretty fast. Any questions about our online? Let me go back to it. There we go. Yep, there's our group. Any questions about how to get into or anything about our online study web page, Bible study web page? All right. Well, I either did a very good job and nobody has questions, or I went too fast and nobody knows what to ask. Okay. If you do have some questions, certainly get a hold of me. After we get through at 7:15, I'll hang out. We'll be hanging out. And if you have any questions, you can ask me then. As a reminder, I do start this session at 5:30. So if you want to come in at 5:30 and want another demonstration or some help getting into it, or have some questions about the web page, then certainly you can come in. You can come in early at 5:30. All right, wonderful, wonderful. I don't see as many faces. A lot of people have turned off their video. All right, so that is the first thing I wanted to cover, to take a look at, was our online group website. Second thing, the main part of this session today is to help us to understand about how God's plan really starts at the beginning of creation. What I'm going to do is I'm very curious about this quiz that you do. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to have another poll for you. Look at your screen. You have two questions. There are two questions on your screen. The first one is, how did you do on the quiz before you read the chapter? If you followed the directions, you were supposed to take a little quiz. I think it was 3 or 4 questions before you read the chapter. And then you take the quiz, you read chapter 1 in the story, and then take the quiz again. That's the second question. After you read the chapter, how did you do? Did you do excellent? You did okay? You did badly? Or you didn't complete the quiz? Some people would say, ooh, what quiz? So go ahead and do your choices for both 1 and 2. You may have to scroll up and down. Make sure you hit the submit button. Let's see how many people we can get participating. Oh, and by the way, these are anonymous. These polls, these surveys are anonymous. I don't know who's answering what. So I don't know if you did very well or very badly. So encourage you to be quite honest, very honest, as opposed to a little honest.
I don't see no quiz.
You don't see no quiz. What kind of device are you on? You want a cell phone or tablet?
Excuse me,
Yes.
the quiz Reverend McLeod is referring to is the one you did on page, what page was that?
Oh, I am sorry.
16.
I'm so sorry. The quiz that I was
16.
talking about for session
16,
1.
17, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Page
That,
16, yeah.
there it is. Yes, on page 16. On page 16 of your study guide, and I know some people have just picked up their study guide, but there was a quiz on that page. So thank you for helping me to realize some people would not know what I'm talking about. They're getting caught up. So whether you did the quiz or not, if you would go ahead and
I can't submit mine, but I lost the poll anyway. You got to take it back up.
oh, I don't know how, I don't think I can do that.
Oh, well, my brother said excellent, and I didn't complete mine. To be honest.
Okay, so your brother did excellent before the reading?
Yeah.
Okay, how did you do after the reading?
I read everything.
Oh, he did it after.
Oh, okay. So you did excellent afterwards. Okay. Okay. All right. We're 27 of 36, only 75% participated. Oh, we can do better than that. All right. Those that are holding out.
I see a quiz here.
Okay. You don't see a quiz on your screen?
No, I do not.
Okay. What kind of device are you on?
Cell phone.
Cell phone. I have noticed that most of the problems with the polls have to do with cell phones. I think there's a specific type of technology that may be blocking pop-ups. So I apologize if you don't see a quiz to pop up for you. So I'll take that into account. We're up to 77%, 28 of 36. So I'll give you about 10 more seconds if you would. Go ahead and participate. All right, about 5 more seconds. Last minute. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'll go ahead and share the results. How did we do before we read the chapter? Okay, most people said okay. 13% of us, I'm sorry, 46% of us, almost half said did okay. 32%, about a third of us did not complete the quiz. Oh, that's a surprise. And then we had some people, 18% said excellent. And then about 4% said bad. So overall as a group, we did okay before, but a large percentage of us did not complete the quiz. All right, how did we do afterwards? Did we improve?
I did.
This, yes, we improved. After 46%, almost half of us said we did excellent. Hey, give yourself a hand. Or you can do a reaction. Remember how to do reactions? You can clap. You can do a thumbs up. You can click on reactions and give yourself a thumbs up or a clap. That's great. We had 29% didn't complete the quiz, and 21% said okay, and then 4% said badly. I guess I should have changed that to an adverb. All right. So what we see is that we saw some learning. The difference between before and after the reading, which is great. That's wonderful. So be encouraged that it looks like most of us learned some things from the chapter, and it shows up on the quiz. So that's wonderful. No matter how well you did or how badly you did, the main thing is just to do the reading and do the personal time. That's very important. So thank you for participating with that poll. The second thing I want to do when we talk about comments and things is if you'll take your study guide and turn to page 20. Turn to page 20. This is the group time section of the study guide. You did probably the personal time part of the study guide, but now we're getting into the group time, and you can see it, that second question there on page 20. And it says, what was your most interesting insight or question from your personal time this week? And if you would, I'll give you a minute. If you would take pen or pencil and write down in those lines provided, they give you 3 lines there. Write down your most interesting insight or question that you have from your personal time this past week. So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. All right, well, let's take a look and see what was your most interesting insight or question. If you would, just, I'm just going to open it up and feel free to take yourself off of mute and share with the group what your interesting insight or question.
What stood out for me was that we read and we think of God as one, but when he came to the day that he made man, it said that God made man in their image.
Yes.
And that stood out.
Okay. That was a very good insight. That was a good catch. Yeah. Yeah. God is one and God is 3 in one. Distinct, but the same. Yeah. Yeah. He said, let us make God in our image. And yeah, there's actually at least a couple different places it says that. Okay. Good catch.
I think one of those that when I was reading, it came from the question on number 5 that's on page 17. It says, what is the one question you wish you could ask God about what you read? And mine was on the story of Noah, because I was wanting to know, how did he keep peace on that ark? I was just thinking how I would feel this cramped up that many days with all this going on, how they keep their sanity. So my question would be, how did you give them peace over that journey?
Right. Yeah. But before thinking about that, question popped up in my head. How do we know there was peace on the ark?
Well, I don't know, but I didn't read anything about any breakouts. Nobody jumped ship.
Yeah. They didn't have anybody overboard. Nobody got thrown. Well, I don't know that for a fact. Maybe they got them back on board. I don't know. Yeah, it is interesting that we don't see a lot of details around the operations or how they got along during the journey on the ark.
One thing that interested me was it says that Noah was 600 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, was everyone living that long? And then they all died in the flood. And then How much longer did Noah live? I don't know. I just have all these little questions popping up as I speak.
Yeah. Yeah, the interesting thing about the beginning of Genesis is that we do see some of the ages.
Right.
It does say, some of the ages. Noah was 600 years old, and this
Right.
happened, and then he, lived a certain time afterward. The impression that we get is that as we read the Bible, is that during that time they did live a longer lives than what we're used to. Hundreds and hundreds of years,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where Methuselah,
Right.
he is the one that is recorded as having the longest life.
Mm-hmm.
That's just recorded. Maybe there was somebody who was longer life that wasn't recorded, but that's the longest life, 969 years, almost 1,000 years that he lived. But to answer your question, Dean, if we look at the broad scope of Genesis, it looks like during that time they did live to a ripe old age.
Is there any place in the Bible that records when Adam and Eve actually passed?
Not that I remember. I don't remember an age for Adam and Eve being in the Bible. I don't believe so. I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Reminds me, just as an aside, I was reading a book a few years ago, and I remember a chart. Somebody went through each name that had an age and plotted it on a chart. And the interesting thing is that you see a downward trend. It starts up pretty high, and then there's this downward trend in the age. Some people, speculate that sin, as more and more people and more sin, and it affects more and more of the world and more of the population, that our ages, our lifespans start to get short.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the more we know better, or we should know better, it decreases.
right.
Okay, Terry Bible says from Adam to Noah, it says Adam lived to be 900 years old and then he died.
Okay. So it
Okay.
Adam lived to be 930 years old and he died.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
And where'd you find that?
It's just in this is in my brother's Bible.
It's in the NIV Bible.
It's in the NIV Bible, and it's in Genesis. It's in chapter 5, Genesis 5:5. It says from Adam to Noah, and it says this is the written according to of Adam's line. When God created man, He made him in the likeness of God. He created them, man and female. And it said down here, it said when Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years and then he died.
Okay, I see that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah, I had forgotten that Adam's age was in the Bible. Methuselah always stands out.
But
Right.
they don't say nothing about They don't say nothing about Eve though.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for those comments and insight. That is good. It sounds like you've gotten some things out of the reading and out of the personal time, and that's wonderful. What I like to do now is we're going to the video, and I'll probably go ahead and just mute everyone just so that we don't have a lot of background noise. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we'll go ahead and start the video. Let me introduce just very quickly. You'll see Max Lucado. He wrote I think he wrote the foreword or something, or part of the introduction. And then you'll see Randy Frazee. That's how you pronounce his last name is Frazee. And so you'll see those two in the video. If you want, well, there is a place you can fill in some blanks on page 20 in your study guide. On page 20 of your study guide, you can see at the bottom where it says understand the story. There are, looks like 5 points, 5 bullet points there where you can fill in the blank. If you pay attention, they'll say almost those exact words, and you can go ahead and fill in the blank. And those are some of the main points. All right, let me click a couple of buttons here, and we'll go ahead and get started. Now, you may have to adjust your sound, the device, the sound on your device. You may need to adjust it up or down.
This is your story.
This is my story.
But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told.
This is God's story.
I know you're going to enjoy the incredible journey you're about to embark on. The story is brimming over with tales of mystery, intrigue, adventure, of love, heartbreak, and triumph, of power, of struggle, and finally, of redemption. But remember, the Bible is not 100 ancient, unrelated paintings, but a mural all knitted together to tell the story of God's great love for us and the extent to which He will go.
Bear with me for just a second here. I needed to make sure that something got done here. Bear with me.
This is your story.
This is my story.
But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told.
This is God's story.
I know you're going to enjoy the incredible journey you're about to embark on. The story is brimming over with tales of mystery, intrigue, adventure, of love, heartbreak, and triumph, of power, of struggle, and finally, of redemption. But remember, the Bible is not 100 ancient, unrelated paintings, but a mural all knitted together to tell the story of God's great love for us and the extent to which He will go to get us back. As we go through each session of the story together, my hope and prayer is that God would refocus, recenter, remind, and rebuild our lives on what is important. That's why I'm really looking forward to spending this time with you as we explore your story, my story, and ultimately how we all fit into the greatest story ever told, God's story.
Can you imagine yourself as an actor or actress in a play? You have everything you need. You have a part, you have a place to stand on the stage, you even have a costume. But what you do not have is an understanding of the story. You've never read the script. You don't know the screenplay. You don't know where it started. You don't know where it's headed. You just find yourself on the stage. Many people go through life like this. They don't know where life began. They really don't know where history is headed. Wouldn't it be great to read the script? Well, the purpose of the story is to help us understand God's script. He has written a saga, a sweeping screenplay, and we all have a part in it. What a tragedy not to know your part. As you dive into the Old Testament with my friend Randy Frazee, he's going to help you understand the upper story of God and the lower story of God. In the upper story, we'll find God's eternal plans. The lower story is what we're working out in our day-to-day lives. Learning to interpret our lower story in the scope of God's upper story is really essential in understanding God's purpose in our lives. We want you to know your part in God's play. Because your part is an important part in His plan, and His plan is something you don't want to miss.
This is your story. This is my story. But most of all, this is the greatest story ever told. This is God's story. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and He separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky. And there was evening and there was morning, the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered water He calls seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the third day.
When you walk into the beautiful Sistine Chapel in Rome and look up at the ceiling, right down the middle, you'll see the 9 paintings of Michelangelo that make up his artistic interpretation of Genesis chapter 1 through chapter 11, or chapter 1 of the story. Michelangelo was dialed in on the very important truth about the Bible. The first 11 chapters have to be understood. If you miss what's going on here, you'll miss it all. You'll miss God's big idea and what He's trying to accomplish, and even how it was lost. In the first painting, we see God divides the light from the darkness. In the second painting, God creates the sun and the planets. In the third painting, God divides the water from the earth. Without question, this is the mother of all science fair projects. God gets the blue ribbon. What one wouldn't give to have a front row seat to this invention. Oh, for that little construction window that allows pedestrians to peer through to gaze at the building of a skyscraper. But all of this galactical fanfare isn't the point of the story. The point of the story comes in the fourth painting, the famous rendering of the creation of Adam. The strong finger of God reaches out and extends life to the limp finger of Adam. This is the point of the story, the purpose of creation. The pride and joy of God's handiwork is revealed in the opening pages. What is the apple of God's eye? The magnum opus of His work? People, us. Go figure, but it's true. Then God said, "Let us make human beings in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock, over the wild animals, over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created human beings in His own image. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. After God finished creating us, He stepped back and declared, "This is very good." Need a boost of self-esteem? How about some God-esteem? Read Genesis 1 every morning for the rest of your life. It's better than a jolt you'll get from a cup of Starbucks. Many mornings I wake up and I look at myself in the mirror and say, this isn't good. God looks at us and says, looking at you is better than an ocean view. It is better than watching beautiful animals dart across the Serengeti, better than watching a sunrise. We are told in the story that God places them in a beautiful garden called Eden, a botanical wonder world. We are told that God took walks with Adam and Eve in the cool of the day. God wasn't up there, he was down here. God's grand vision was to walk with his children, to be in their presence. God creates the lower story so he can come down from the upper story and do life with us. Listen to this. God's big idea, the point of his story, is to be with us. This is God's vision. Now he needs to see if this is the vision of Adam and Eve. God is not forcing his vision on them. He wants to give them the choice. So he places two trees in the middle of the garden. One is called the tree of life. If they ate the fruit from this tree, it would sustain their life forever. The second tree is called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If they ate of this tree, it would be their way of telling God his vision for life together wasn't their vision. Well, we don't know how much time passes, but we do know they choose to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In this one act of free will, they rejected God's vision in exchange for a vision to be their own gods. This is the fifth painting of Michelangelo. God honors their choice, and he escorts them out of the garden. Here is what it says. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had taken it. After he drove them out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. God banished them from the garden to keep them from having access to the other tree, the tree of life. This tree sustained life. Without access to this tree, they would eventually die. Now, this seems to be kind of mean at first glance for God to banish them from the garden. But after further reflection, you will see that this is an act of grace on God's part. Living with the sin nature, with other people with the sin nature, on an earth that is cursed, is not the vision of life that God had in mind. With sin, there is pain, sickness, fighting, and hatred. And this is not a way of life that is worth sustaining. However, it's the only thing we know, so we think God is being cruel by letting us die. The grand vision of God has been wrecked by the choice of one man, Adam. It broke the heart of God. Now, outside of the garden, Adam and Eve have two children, Cain and Abel. You know the famous story. Cain, jealous that God accepted his brother's sacrifice over his, kills him in an act of cold blood. From a lower story perspective, it appears that this is a story of sibling rivalry gone bad. But from the upper story, God is sending a big message to all of us, even me and you. The choice of Adam and the sin nature that banished him from the presence of God and eternal life has been transmitted to his offspring. Every one of us are born with a sin nature, separated from a relationship with God through the choice of one man. Now, before you are overcome with despair, listen to this. God wants us back. And the rest of the story of the Bible unfolds his plan, his relentless pursuit of you and me. Now, the first and most obvious idea is to simply start over, to take the best, the most righteous guy alive and his family and simply start over with the most moral cream of the crop. Well, that guy is Noah. The last three pictures on the center ceiling of the chapel are dedicated to Noah's story. It's famous and well known. Noah builds a huge ark in the middle of the desert, collects two animals of every kind and closes them up with his family. The great flood covers the earth and kills everyone save Noah and his family and the animals on board. Now in the lower story, it looks like we're being taught about faithfulness in God through Noah. And God is calling us to do that, but there's more. The point of the story is captured by Michelangelo in the 9th and final painting. It is a painting of Noah naked and drunk in his tent, and the willful choice of his son to look at him in his disgrace. Noah and his family are just a few days off the big boat when this happens. What is God trying to teach us in the upper story? The solution to getting us back will not be found in us, not even the best of us. So what is God's plan to get us back? That is what the rest of the story is about. Each painting in the Sistine Chapel in the Bible will contribute to his plan. Hold on to your seat and keep watching, because you are about to see the greatest love story ever told.
All right. That is the video for today. I think Randy does a great job of pointing out certain things. And I hope that on page 20 that you were able to get those 4 or 5 bullet points. Let me recap those just for a second, just in case you didn't fill in the blanks, and to emphasize just a couple of things. The first is that the Bible is a mural knitted together to tell the story of God's great love. When we look at the Bible, we know that there are 66 books. We know that there's 39 in the Old Testament, 27 in the New Testament. But really, the Bible is a collection of books that tell the same story. God has over 1,500 years allowed and inspired men to write the same story throughout the whole Bible. So we should really look at the Bible not as just a collection of different books that tell just different parts of the story, but it is really one whole story. The second bullet point says that what is the apple of God's eye? The magnum opus of his work, it is people. The answer is us. Imagine that he made us, he formed us, he's allowed us to multiply, to subdue the earth, and we are the culmination, we are the climax, the culmination of his work. We were the culmination of his work back when he formed Adam and Eve, and we still are. And sometimes that's hard to remember when we look at some of the suffering that we see, when we see some of the injustice that we see. But we have to remember that's lower story stuff. That's the day in and the day out, a lot of the horizontal relationships. What I really love about the story and what we're going to be studying over the next few months is this upper story and how we should be looking at the world through God's perspective and how we fit in the lower story into the upper story. So that should be our perspective. The third thing, God took walks with them in the cool of the day. Of course, the them being Adam and Eve. I can imagine that, it's nice and cool. It's the afternoon or the evening, and God is actually walking with Adam and Eve. Of course, they made the wrong decision, but that really tells us, in looking at the upper story, that really tells us that God wants to be with us. He really, really does want to be with us. That is his plan. And then lastly, that last bullet kind of ends on a sour note. If you really look at it, every one of us is born with a sin nature. Because of what Adam did, every one of us has this virus that is more deadly than the COVID-19 virus. And it is more, and you're more susceptible to catch it. Everyone has caught it. And we all spread it around just by reproduction. you can't get any more infectious than that. And you really can't get any more deadly than that. That is called sin. And I'll just wrap it up and say that the way the writer wraps it up in Genesis, really, he is telling us, the writer of Genesis, we believe is Moses, is telling us that there's a real problem here, but the answer is not going to come from us, even the best of us in Noah. In the story, if you would take your larger book, the story, and let me point out one thing before we conclude our session. On page 6 of the story, and I'm a little surprised that Randy Frazee didn't point this out, but I hope you caught this past week in your personal time. There's something that's very interesting and a little puzzling that happens on page 6 in your large book, the story book. We know that Adam messed up, that there are consequences. That's another thing that the story is telling us, that the Bible's telling us there are consequences to disobedience. But in some of the cursing that happened, of course, the serpent has to crawl on his belly, eat dust. There's going to be pain in childbearing for Eve. Adam is relegated to sweating and toiling for food. But there's this one thing that's said between that God says at the top of page 6. He says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman," talking to the serpent. God is going to put enmity. They're going to be enemies between you, you, serpent, and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. And we wonder why women are so scared of snakes. That's probably the reason why. But I want you to catch this last part after the semicolon. It says, "He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." What is he talking about there? He, talking about Eve's offspring, is going to crush your head, and you, serpent, will strike his heel. What the author is doing, what Moses is doing here in Genesis, is very good storytelling. He is doing what's called foreshadowing. He's giving you a glimpse. He's giving you a little picture of what is to come. You ever watch a movie and you think to yourself, wow, I knew he was going to do that because, they showed this scene and they showed this scene and they showed this scene. And so the director of the movie was giving you glimpses of what was going to be coming on down the road. And if you see that a second time, if you see that movie a second time, then it's so clear. They showed you certain scenes almost broadcasting what's going to happen in the future. Well, the author of Moses and the ultimate author, God, is doing the same thing. He's giving you a glimpse of what is to come. He's giving you a glimpse really at the solution to this big problem that's happening here at the beginning of Genesis, the problem being sin. He's saying that the offspring of Eve is going to crush the serpent's head, and that the serpent will strike at his heel, the offspring of the serpent. The serpent is our adversary, the devil, Beelzebub, Satan. He's known by the father of lies. He's the angel of light. He has a lot of names in the Bible, but he basically is Satan. So the offspring of Eve is going to crush the head of Satan, is going to be victorious over Satan. Now, the serpent, the devil, is going to nip at his heel, but what this offspring of Eve is going to do is going to be deadly. I wonder what he's talking about. Can anybody tell me who we're talking about in this foreshadowing? Anybody at all? Who are we talking about here?
Christ.
Oh, yes. Yes, thank you. That is who we're talking about right here. God right here is giving us a glimpse of something that's going to happen many and many and many chapters into the future. But already we see that God's plan, his intentional plan, is going forward. Already we see that God's unchanging plan starts from the beginning with creation. Really, if you read Paul's writings, it really starts before time is invented, before in eternity past, it really starts. So I think that's really neat. I think that's really cool. I think that's really good storytelling to give you a glimpse of what's coming in the future. So this really sets the tone. This really tells us what the Bible is all about. It really tells us what the story is all about. It tells us about what the solution is going to be all about. That's going to be Christ. He is the solution. And we'll see this all throughout. The rest of the Bible is going to tell about how God is working his plan and how can this Christ come on the scene and crush Satan's head. I'm excited about this. Really excited. So that's our first session. So in summary, we took today to spend some time looking at our online website, our online group website. I want you to play around with that, see if you can get into it. And then our central idea for this evening is that God's unchanging plan starts from the beginning with creation. He's working on something in this upper story. Your personal time this week are from pages 23 to 27 of your study guide, pages 23 through 27, session number 2. What questions or comments do you have before we start to wrap this up? What questions or comments do you have?
If you look at it too, it also said that Adam named his wife Eve after all this happened. She didn't have a name; she was just his helpmeet then. So he named her Eve because she would become the mother of all the living. That means that she would start getting childbirth.
Right. Right.
It all took us a piece of fruit. Everything broke loose.
All because of a piece of fruit, right? Yeah, the funny thing to kind of sit around and think about what we have done any differently.
Yeah.
Given the free will, what we have done any differently.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah, a few of us might get puffed up and say, no, I would have been obedient. I would have been obedient. Probably not. Okay, thank you, Ben. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I think Adam just threw Eve under the bus.
Thank you.
He really wanted to eat the apple, and he used her as a scapegoat because she just simply adored him, and she would have done anything for him.
Well,
No, that's ain't right. No.
I think we might be we might be reading a few things into the Bible. We do know as part of the curse, and this is kind of interesting if you really study it out. Part of the curse is that Eve would have desire for her husband, and that he would rule over her. Isn't that interesting? If that doesn't mess you up a little, then you're not thinking about it. But we're going to leave it right there before we get into some anthropology and sociology and start laying on top of the Bible. But thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see, just as an aside, I'm glad to see questions and comments. I'm glad to see that all of us are thinking about this. we're engaging our brains, that we're actually engaging. So this is really good. Let me encourage you again, and I mentioned this last week, to get a reading partner. Get someone that you can call up between sessions, between Bible studies, and just say, hey, you know, how's your reading going? You know, have you had any aha moments? You know, spend a few minutes discussing them. So it makes it a lot more fun, a lot more engaging, and you end up learning a lot more when you discuss with other people. So get a reading partner. If you don't have a reading partner, you can go online to our website and go through the list and contact someone, or you can stay. We're about to pray out and dismiss, but you can hang out for a few minutes, and maybe someone will come on and say, hey, I'm looking for a reading partner. Anybody willing to do that? So feel free to hang out after we dismiss. Well, our live students, hang on for just a second. Let me say goodbye to our recording students. Thank you so much for participating by viewing. I really appreciate you taking a look at it. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up on YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.